can hear destiny calling, calling out my name. Need no shield. Now watch me feel. Failure is not
Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes to help your body move. There you go. There you go.
I choose to thrive. I will learn with force, never on my knees. I am not the same. I'm different. I am not the same. Yeah, I am not the same.
Everything hurts so bad. Like excruciating pain. The brain is physically in so much pain. The nerves from my back of my head, through my neck, through my back. All right. Welcome to the Face of Malpractice. I am your host, Melissa. For those of you tuning in for the first time, this channel is dedicated to featuring interviews with fellow psych drug warriors. It is not just my story to tell. This platform is meant to create space for others to share their truths. On TikTok and my new Instagram page, I will continue posting a mix of content, including videos about my journey through psych drug injury and educational material. Be sure to follow me here on YouTube as well on TikTok and Instagram for a variety of updates and insights. So today we'll be interviewing Emma James. Did I say your last name correctly?
It sounds so much more exotic when you say it that way. Unfortunately, it's just Hames.
Hames. Okay, Hames. There we go. So Hames. So we're interviewing Emma Hames today, who is a filmmaker and musician behind TOXSICK, a bold and poetic documentary uncovering the hidden global health crisis caused by overprescribed medication like benzodiazepines. After surviving a severe iatrogenic injury herself, Emma is using her voice, both in film and music, to ignite awareness, reform, and healing. Her work blends investigation grit with creativity, aiming to save lives and challenges the status quo in Western medical healthcare practices. Thank you, Emma, for joining us.
Thanks, Melissa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a good place to start with your story is, where were you in your life before you were put on prescribed drugs? And like essentially what led you to that moment in time?
Yeah, so where to start? I mean, I feel like I was just leading a fairly, quote, normal life. I had just graduated as a teacher, so did my postgrad, and I had just moved to France. So there's a slight backstory as to why I was put on the benzo in the first place, which was I contracted a virus during my teacher training, hazards of the job. And looking back, I think it was a kind of coronavirus, but kind of unbeknownst to me at the time and to doctors. And so that essentially led to a lung injury, which I didn't find out about until a year later. In that time, I'd moved from England to France. And essentially, when I got to France, I found out that my lung capacity was at 60% a few months into living there. And because I'd gone a year with essentially kind of just over one lung functioning properly, I developed severe anxiety as a result of that, and the gaslighting from doctors, didn't know what was wrong with me. So I was given this anti-anxiety medicine and never told of the risks. The doctor literally said, if you want your life back, take these. And I did. And that's how I ended up on a benzodiazepine.
Wow. It's so crazy. Like, the medical system doesn't realize the amount of, because of their lack of diagnosis or their lack of education and their gaslighting, how much medical anxiety that can cause in us about our own health. It's like, it's just so wild how many of us end up going for having some type of other element. And that journey through the medical system is what causes us to be put on these prescribed drugs. And then look where we end up. But I'm so sorry that was your journey onto this drug, to say the least. Can I ask you, which benzodiazepine were you put on?
Yeah, of course. So it was one called bromazepam, which isn't one of the sort of more commonly known ones. And I've actually found out fairly recently that it's not prescribed in the UK or the US because it's
Mm.
so dangerous, apparently. Um, as though all benzodiazepines are not dangerous. I mean, all of them are, I think is important to say. But yeah, I was just given this pill. The common name on the box was Lexomil. Sounds quite nice. It sounds
Mhm.
quite like this will help you, and this is what the doctors were saying. I never actually heard the term benzodiazepine until 2019. So I had no idea what benzo was, I had no context of this situation. And yeah, that's the one that I was on for 4 years.
So it was 4 years. Okay, so you were on it for 4 years. And so when you were on it, um, what were you experiencing? Were you one of those people that did have symptoms while taking as prescribed, or was it only when you started to try to come off?
No, I went into tolerance withdrawal. And I know from an interview I did with Dr. Yosef with Doering that essentially means that your nervous system's already being injured whilst you're taking it as prescribed. I only ever took it as prescribed. I had no interest in doing anything else. Um, so my symptoms, I mean, pretty early on, I felt all the, I guess the common side effects of being on a strong drug. I felt drowsy. I felt, the best way to describe it. And so early on, I asked doctors to come off it, if I could come off it. And they refused and they increased my dosage instead. Um,
Mm.
and then throughout time, I started getting new symptoms. I became very apathetic to everything, though I couldn't gauge that at the time because the thing that you would gauge that with is the thing being injured. I would have physical symptoms, so I developed a kind of hyperglycemic symptom, which was very strange to me, and I couldn't understand what was going on. So every time I was hungry, I'd feel like I was gonna collapse or have a seizure or something like that. I mean, it was terrifying,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing showed up in blood tests or any other tests. And then the big symptom that I developed was heart palpitations, which I can't really remember when that started. Um, but yeah, I just started having these horrible heart palpitations that would occur any time of day. So I could be teaching a class. I have vivid memories of standing at the back of my classroom whilst my students were presenting their work at the architectural school that I worked at. And I could just feel my heart doing weird things. And obviously that was terrifying. But it could happen in the middle of the night, often woke me up. Even going for drinks with friends or going for dinner around a friend's house, it would sometimes happen, and I'd have to go and lie down um, on their bed just to try and calm down. The doctors were saying nothing was physically wrong, and so yeah, I was just very much left in the dark with these new symptoms that started occurring.
Did you know at that time, did you know it was the drug? Did you believe it was the drug?
Do you know what? That's a really good question, and it's so hard to look back and know what was going through my mind because obviously now my mind is clouded with the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to remember how it felt at the time. I'm not, my honest answer is I'm not sure. I definitely was going from pillar to post with different doctors trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
And obviously they say, what are you taking? What are you on? So it was in my medical files. And I think probably at some point in that journey, it just made sense that that could be
Mm.
an option. But I think when every doctor you go to looks at your file and kind of says, well, there's nothing in here that's of concern, you kind of quickly just drown that thought out because surely they would know. Surely they would know
Of
if these are common
course.
symptoms.
Of course.
Um, so yeah, in all honesty, I don't think it was that much of a consideration on my part. No.
Yeah, no, fair. And something that I want to mention, not only benzos, but all psychiatric drugs cause something called spellbinding. And spellbinding is literally exactly what it says. It alters your consciousness while taking as prescribed and during tapering and cessation so severely that it it basically convinces you that it cannot be the drug. Like you're so spellbound to believe that like the drug is helping me. I went through that on both SSRIs, SNRIs, even though I believed I heavily believed it was the drugs affecting me, I also was like, oh my God, maybe it's actually helping me. Like, oh my God, it can't be. This drug is here to help me. This, like, and that's spellbinding. And I think it's such an important topic to talk about because
Wow.
so many people go through it. There's books on this. There's literally books on spellbinding. Anyway, I just want to mention that because I think that could, because we feel so crazy. We feel so crazy in that moment. And when, especially when we're being gaslit and told there's no way it could be the drugs. So I just wanted to throw that out
Yeah.
there.
No,
Um,
thank you for explaining. I've never heard of that, so that's kind of fascinating to know.
yeah, for sure. And it's all psych drugs. It is not just benzos. But and so what brought you to like what led you to the decision to finally start coming off? I don't know if you went cold turkey or tapered, like you could tell you could get to that as well.
Yeah, I called turkeyed actually, never knowing the true risks. I never had a death wish. So basically what happened was I felt like I ran out of options in France. So I was going to all these different doctors, cardiologists, GPs, French ones, and then I found I say the only, one of the only English speaking doctors there,
Mm.
just to make sure that I was not misinterpreting anything in a second language. And that last appointment with that particular doctor, she kind of said, "Okay, tell me about your dreams. Let's look at your. I think if we can make you rethink your maybe there's an answer in your dreams." And at
Mm.
that point, I just thought I've got to shut up shop and go back to the UK to get the answer because I'm just not going to find. I've run out of options here.
Mm.
So I packed up my life that I'd worked hard for 4 years, and I came back to the UK.
Mm.
And the first doctor's appointment that I had, she was the one that said, "You should have been on this for a week maximum." And I've been on it for 4 years and trusted in the French doctors that they knew what they were doing when they kept me on it and increased my dosage over that time. And so this British doctor said to me, "Listen, we don't prescribe this one here, but we can give you a sister one." And at this point, I'm just completely overwhelmed with, I've just been told I should have been on this thing for a week maximum. Now you're telling me I need to go on a sister one. I don't know who to trust. What do I do here? And I just felt really alone and scared. And also by that point, 4 years on a psychiatric medication that has these effects and, inhibits your ability to make decisions and to think properly, and you go into this
Okay.
apathetic state of mind. Like I was not in a great state of mind to be able to make such a big decision as to who I should trust and what I should do anyway. So, all that being said, I realized that I was going to run out because now I was in England and they don't prescribe it here. And I just thought, well, maybe this is just the way it's meant to be. Maybe this is my time to come off it. Um, and the doctor did say, oh, it's a good idea if you go on this sister one. But again, I had no idea who to trust. I'd met this doctor for 10 minutes. You're telling me to go back on something or a sister version of something that I should have been on for a week maximum. The logic in my mind was, that's insane. Why would I do that? And
Mm-hmm.
I think in my mind, I thought that she was suggesting that because it'd be more comfortable for me. It'd be more of um, smoother experience to come off the sister one,
Mm.
and yeah, just be more not enjoyable, but better. And so I thought, screw comfort. I just want safety. I just want to be off these things that I should not have been on for 4 years. And so, yeah, when it ran out, I essentially just cold turkeyed and all hell broke loose.
I am so sorry. And it's like imagine if you were when you first received the prescription, if you had received informed consent, right? Like, hey, these drugs are not meant to be used longer than 2 to 4 weeks. Hey, you should not, if you are using this, you should not be cold turkeying off this drug. Like if you just had, you probably would have been like, fuck, I'm not going to touch that drug at all. If you knew that it
100%.
like it
Yeah.
1%, if you knew 1%, if you just knew 1%, you probably would have
Yeah.
turned the other way and figured out how to deal with your anxiety, right? Like there are other
Yeah.
methods of managing anxiety, I assure you. And so
100%. Yeah. And I mean, at the time, it's the anxiety I was going through was such a normal human reaction to not having been able to breathe properly for a year. Like
Yeah,
I I honestly think I just needed a bit of time off, a holiday, some hugs, nice cup of tea, and just to kind of breathe and recover from that experience of having not been able to breathe properly. And just recalibrated and recharged. And yeah, I would, if I could go back in time, that's 100% what I would do. But we make the best decisions with the knowledge and the understanding that we have at the time. And
that's right.
unfortunately, because of that lack of informed consent, I didn't have that full awareness.
For sure, for sure. And so now take us to how long did it start? Like, how long did it take for you to go into full withdrawal, and what did that look like?
It sort of, there was an overnight aspect to it, but then there's also a delayed reaction. So the
Mhm.
overnight aspect was I just felt like something was off. So I never said this out loud before, but I love dancing. And so in the mornings, often when I'm getting ready, I will dance.
Mhm.
It's just like a nice way to start the day, and music just really kind of fires me up.
Totally.
And I noticed that my muscles weren't behaving in the ways
Mm.
that they should be. I felt this disconnect, and I was like, whoa, almost like when you've had a hangover, and you just know your body's just not responding in the way that it should. Um, it was like that. It was really scary. And
Mm.
then I started having extreme sensitivity to light, to sound, to the point where I couldn't have a conversation with anybody. And I would lie in my bed with an eye mask on, and the only thing I could listen to was Gregorian chants on YouTube. And I
Mhm.
was just like, what is happening to me? What is going on? And obviously I was calling the hospital, the doctors, but everyone just said you're fine. Clearly not. Um, so that was probably 3 months of that. And then I was basically told that I had to get a job. Um, and because I didn't have the medical validation of what was going on, I, I just thought, okay, this must be stress of moving from one country to like I couldn't figure any of it out, but I just thought I have no choice. I have to get a job. And so I went and got a full-time teaching job in central London in a primary school. And I did 6 weeks of that. And I went out one evening, had a few beers, and the next day, all hell broke loose times 10. It was like part two. And I found out again in the interview with Dr. Yusuf Budoring that there can be this delayed injury to the nervous system.
Right.
And so I think that's what happened then. I don't know if the beers were sort of the camel on the straws, no, the straw on the camel's back. Um, but I just it was I didn't even have the words because it was so overwhelming. I just woke up and my heart was going at insane speeds, forced myself to walk to my school, just tried to push through it because I'd been so accustomed to that. And I just thought, no, something, I think my life's in danger here. And my school wouldn't let me call an ambulance. And so I had to walk home. I called an ambulance. Paramedics came. My heart was at 180 BPM.
Mhm.
They took me to hospital. Sirens, lights. I was just like, fuck, this is this is it. This is how I go. And I don't even know what's happening. Um, and by the time we got to the hospital, my heart calmed down by itself. I thought, well, that was terrifying, but at least now, surely I'll get some sort of answer as to what's going on with my body. And I didn't. They ran the tests. It all came back normal. I was sent home. And that was the beginning of a phase of about 5 years where I basically 90% of the time couldn't leave the house, was bedbound for a lot of that time, and for 2 years would be kept in the dark as to what was actually going on.
I am so sorry. I don't every time I hear a benzo story, it's so unfair. It's so unfair how things play out and the devastation that it brings, and to not know. So at that point, because now you're trying to work, which is already horrific to have to even try to do that. And I understand that deeply, having no choice. But so you're 6 weeks in and you have a few beers, which, right, just hit the GABA receptor, like close to the same binding spot. You are just slamming the same receptors that are already
Yeah.
damaged, right, at this point. And so I could see how that could be it could cause a major setback, but in your case, it really did activate the second phase of this journey for you. So at that point, you still didn't know. Did you have like, did you think it was the benzo? Did you have like, what was your intuition? What did you know versus what did your intuition tell you?
Do you know what? I think I was just in so much of a survival mode that my overwhelming state of mind every day was, am I going to survive today? Am I going
Yeah.
to survive today?
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure it out, but I think by that point, honestly, I had just pushed the possibility of it being this pill somewhere to the back of my subconscious, because
Mm-hmm.
it could not have made any sense that
How
I've
could it be?
been
Yeah.
across 2 countries and seen all these doctors
That's right.
and not one of them, and paramedics, and across
Yeah.
both countries as well. So paramedics, GP specialists across 2 countries, for not one of them to pick up on the fact that this could be medication induced with the meds that I was taking. I think it just escaped my mind completely, because that just wouldn't make any sense. So I had no idea really. I
Mm.
thought maybe it was the original virus. I'd been told I had ME. So I believed I had ME for 7 years, only to find out once I finally saw a specialist that I don't.
What is
Uh,
ME?
so I think so chronic fatigue syndrome. Are they the same thing? I'm not sure if they might be. I'm not an expert on this. Um, but along the same lines of chronic fatigue syndrome, often brought on by a virus, and then
Mm.
it's all still very unknown as to what causes it, and what it is. But yeah, so I I thought maybe it was something to do with that, and I think the doctors thought it was something to do with that. And I know my medical records at this point, it just kind of listed me as very anxious person, very stressed person. And it's something that all of us that have gone through medical harm know, that this is another literal insult to the injury. Is of course you're going to present as anxious and stressed. You're in a doctor's surgery, so you're not there just for the fun of it. Um, and B, it's one of the most horrific things you can go through. So
That's right.
anyway, yeah, I just thought it was something along those lines. The doctors, their official conclusion at the start of it all was I had vitamin D deficiency. So I had to go back to my had
Which
to
was
go back to
probably
my
true because
head teacher.
it does that, like that's like one, like that happens, yeah, because of the harm. That's a byproduct. That's not
Right.
what's keeping you in, that's not what you're going through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Um, it's kind of like being put in an electric chair and having those shocks, and then someone going, I think you've got a case of frazzled hair. It's like, well, yeah, that is a consequence, but also can you just stop electrocuting me?
That's it.
Um, so yes, I had to go back to my head teacher and say, I've got vitamin D deficiency. I never knew it was this extreme. This is horrendous. Um, and so yeah, I thought it was that for a few weeks at the beginning.
Mhm.
And I lost my job, couldn't carry on working, and I just could not for the life of me understand how I had endured the year of not breathing properly and moved to another country, finished my postgrad, which is a notoriously challenging degree, moved to another country with 60% lung capacity, and now I was struggling to get out of bed or have a shower or do anything because of vitamin D deficiency. I was just like, this is insane. And so yeah, that was the beginning of the 2-year period of where I was just kind of staying with family, lost my own flat, lost my job, and had no idea of what was going on, and was just again passed from pillar to post with different doctors around the country, all of whom just kind of like, well, we don't know. This is just who you are, and this is, you may never know, is what I ended up being told.
I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry about that.
Thank you.
How at 2 years did you find out it was bind or protracted withdrawal syndrome, or how whatever you were told, like it was related to the benzos? How did you find out at that point?
Yeah, so it was my 35th ambulance crew, and I think it was about 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd had an episode of I still to this day I don't know what it was, but I woke up feeling like the room was caving in on itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to fall through the ground. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And so called the paramedics. They came out, and they were the first medical professionals to sit down with me for the amount of time it took to go through everything, all the symptoms, all the history, all the prescriptions, everything. It took about 2 hours. And they said, okay, I think it was the anti-anxiety medication you were on in France. We've seen this in Somerset, which is in the southwest of England. It's this whole region where I was staying at the time. And I was just like, what? That's my brain just couldn't compute that 2 years later, after coming off it, 6 years after being prescribed it, that this was the cause of all my problems. And not only that, but it turns out to be an issue in Somerset. It and so I didn't really believe it at first, because by that point I'd been tested for everything under the sun, been told it could be this, and this. I kind of just didn't know who to trust and what to trust. But I started researching it the next day, and just it's kind of that click moment of, yeah, this is it. This makes a lot of sense. And thanks to social media and hashtag benzodiazepines, I started to really understand what had happened to me. I didn't at that point know about bind, and I didn't at that point know about protracted withdrawal. I just knew about benzodiazepines and the injuries that they can cause.
Wow. That must have it must have been scary to learn that. And also you probably could breathe somewhere deep down knowing that it actually wasn't you, I assume. I guess that's an open-ended question for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was just I mean, it was such a mix of emotions. It really was. It was the satisfying feeling-ish of the validation and that sort of peace of mind that comes with that. It was, but also the anger, the realization that I wasn't the only one and I wasn't imagining things, but then the sadness and anger of realizing how many people are also affected by this. Yeah, it was a real mixed bag of feelings. It was hard to kind of know what to feel in that moment.
And let me ask you, so how it sounds like you had some support through this. It sounded like you had was your family helping you at this point?
How to answer this one?
If you want to plead the fifth, you could plead the fifth.
No. I think it's important to speak truthfully, because I know a lot of people are going through similar things. Plead the fifth. Yeah, so I had some physical support at the beginning in terms of a roof over my head, and the lifts to doctor's appointments and things like that. Because I wasn't getting the medical validation for a long time, it became apparent that it was seen as something that I was over exaggerating or making up. My parents were going through a divorce at the time, and so I would overhear conversations about how it was attention seeking, which blew my mind, because it clicked for me that my own family didn't know me, and that was really sad. That was kind of a grief on top of all the medical stuff. And it just kind of blew my mind that why why would I have chosen to give up my life in France and my independence? And this is not something anyone would voluntarily put themselves through. So kind of there, but also kind of very, very alone. I don't think I've ever felt so alone than going through that. My dad did later apologize to me years later once we had the answers. And he said, I felt like I had no choice but to believe the medical doctors. So I can empathize. It's a difficult position to be in, but for anyone listening to this, whose loved one is going through this, please believe them. Please know that it is one of the most torturous things anyone can experience, and your love and support and validation is potentially life-saving and so important.
Thank you for sharing that. And my heart hurts feeling what you must have experienced not having, because it's, yes, having a roof over our head, that's basic survival we're talking about. Then there's the emotional support that is like required to survive this battle. And you didn't have that. And so many people listening in, like this is where like I feel like, how do we survive this without that? How do we survive without someone telling us every second of the day, you will heal, it just takes time, you have to hold on, just hold on to that breath, do whatever you fucking have to do to make it to that next day, And if you don't have that, and I agree, I second that. Any family listening or loved ones, like, don't give up on us. There's so much literature out there. Just read the damn drug insert that literally states protracted withdrawal syndrome. Like, even though, and the FDA and the drug inserts don't even do it nowhere near justice to our reality of what we experience. But I ask the same of anyone listening. They will never forget the people that stood by them. And one day they will be able to walk the earth the way you are. But until then, if you want to give them the best shot of survival, please stand by them as much as you can. So yes, I don't know if you had something to say. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I was really feeling the truth of what you were saying there, and completely agree with everything that you've said. It is, it's a cruel thing to be going through something so serious and so intense and it be invisible. And yeah, just second everything that you said. I really implore anybody, if you care and love about that person, if you care about and love that person, take some time. Doesn't have to be a huge amount of research, but just go and go on YouTube, people going through this, listen to the interviews, find out what the scientific papers are and read them, even the abstracts and, just the synopsis of the research that's out there. It is undeniable.
That's right.
Evidence. And the number one thing you have to do is to listen and validate them. Imagine going through something that is absolute hell on earth and not being believed. It's just torture upon torture. And as we know, a lot of people don't make it through this. This is not just side effects that are uncomfortable. This is potentially life and death. And that validation and that support can literally be the difference between somebody still being here and making it through and not. So to anyone listening to this that cares about other humans, please know how real this is, and support those that may need it.
Totally. And thank you so much for saying that. I second everything there for sure. So let me ask you, around grieving. And again, this is going to be open-ended. one, did you grieve yourself? Like, were you grieving the loss of you? And what was that like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the short answer is yes, absolutely. Grieving those years, not not just the 5 years that I was housebound, and not, I mean, I'm in year 9 of recovery now, and I've had some really good moments in those 9 years, but also it's not, I guess it's that feeling of it's not being the 9 years that I was naturally on. That was not my, it didn't feel like that was my natural trajectory. It felt like life got kind of ripped by the seams, and now you're in this alternate reality. And also grieving the time that I was on the benzo as well, just realizing, wow, I probably didn't live as myself for the entire time that I lived in France. And that was a grieving period because I realized that in an alternate reality, would things have been different? You know, the relationships ending, the apathy that I felt towards everything, including myself. Again, I had some good moments and I was putting on a brave face a lot of the time, but
Yeah.
how different would life have been if I got to live it as myself from the age of 24? It's just, you know, so young. So I grieved that time and that quality of life. Maybe quality of life is the wrong word because it was a quality of life, but more the authenticity of that life to be able to live it as myself. And then also grieving the future. What does this mean for the future? Who am I now? Am I a different version of myself? Am I always going to have health sensitivities? Am I going to carry this trauma? What does it mean? And I've processed that over time, but it has literally been a grieving process because of all those factors.
And do you still grieve yourself?
I think in parts, but I feel like the ratio of kind of grief to healing is shifting. So I feel I'm now in a place through the process of grieving and through addressing those emotions
Mm.
where I feel more attuned with hope, with optimism,
Yeah.
and with excitement for who I now am and the future that I now have ahead of me being on this path, and that it may be a different path. Maybe it was the path I was always meant to be on. And when we get into the existential philosophical realm, but regardless of whether it was meant to be or not meant to be, I do now have this belief that for all of us, it can be this alternate, but not necessarily worse, maybe even a better alternate reality because of what we've been through. Not to romanticize it in any way, but I do believe that beauty can come from the deepest darkness. And so that's kind of that perspective shift over time. And it's not an overnight process and it's not easy, but it has begun to kind of swing that balance from grief to it becoming a lesser, quieter voice than it has been.
Yeah, for sure. And I would second that. I also believe there is a higher perspective to our suffering, and that with suffering, we do die through this journey. There's no, you can't make, like, we can't make that up. We do die. We're stuck in a vessel that's somehow breathing. Medically, according to the Western system, we're alive. By no means are we alive. We are dead in a vessel, right? And but I do believe personally that with death comes the opportunity to rebuild at some point, and we get to
Yeah.
rebuild that foundation with time, and that foundation is going to look different for all of us. And and there is a very human aspect to this. Like, regardless of the higher perspective, the spiritual perspective, there is a very human aspect of our suffering, and it is not okay. Just because there is a higher perspective, just because there is hope, does not make what happened to us okay. It will never be okay what happened. And, like, I would say like Martin Luther King, he had so much anger in him and so much oomph. What did he do with that? He transmuted it by fighting. And I see like that may not be everyone's journey through benzo injury and getting to the other side. So many people never want to look back, and I fully respect those people. And maybe their journey is that they go advocate for something else, or they go have children that they like. That's how you're transmuting what you just went through. And then there's people like you and me that find it in advocacy. Like that's how we transmute what we've gone through, right? And so I think that's a really important topic. And grieving, oh my God, the grieving comes in so many different colors. And you're far out, right? I'm 40, I'm going into my 42 month, I think now. I have to look that up, but you're far out there. And so I was curious of where you are on that process. And it's going to take the time it needs.
Yeah, it is. And I think this is another important thing to say in terms of the healing process pertaining to other people in society is I mean, look, we are the sole responsible bearers for our health and well-being, but we're also human, and the way others treat us and the way society treats us has an impact. I have no doubt that I would have healed sooner if there had been more support from every angle. No doubt at all. I know right now, I mean, recently I've been trying to contact lawyers for compensation. Looks like it's going to be a dead end. But had I had that compensation and could have bought my own home and get a dog and be able to afford my own kind of private healing team, right, with somatic therapists and swimming every day and just like all these, like build this ecosystem of healing that allowed me to process things a lot quicker and allowed me to build the life that I want, like the work that I'm working on and everything else. I have no doubt that I would have healed a lot sooner. Again, there may be a reason as to why it has been the way it's been. So it's something that I can sort of acknowledge, but also let go of at the same time. But on the human aspect, again, the suffering that's going on, if we have a choice to help reduce the suffering for others and nurture them in their recoveries, not just with benzos or iatrogenic harm, but everything, so many people suffering, then I think we're all better off living in that kind of world.
I agree with you completely on that. And I'm curious because you brought it up. Did you end up doing somatic healing at some point?
Something I've started recently, actually,
Yeah.
very recently, and I started getting somatic massages, which were really, really interesting for me. And I was told, I mean, there's a whole other conversation around
Yeah.
the body and how it stores trauma, but was just kind of told that the right side of my body had been carrying, I mean, she literally said to me, I can feel how determined you are through the energy in the right side of your body and how determined you were to survive and to heal. And I think getting back into an attunement with your body when you felt so disconnected from it and you felt so scared of it, even though it's not your body's fault. Your body's doing everything it can to absorb and adjust to this massive trauma that's been thrust upon it. But learning to bridge that relationship with your body I can tell that's a real turning point for me, and something that I hope all of us that have gone through this will have access to in various forms.
And I'm glad you brought that up because it's true, right? As part of our survival, we exit the body or we try as much as possible if we know it or not. It's so physically pain. Like how many illnesses are there that take away the mind, body, and spirit? Like this alters our consciousness so severely. Like it feels like there's nowhere to go. So we often just try to escape, which is a trauma response, dissociation. And at some point, it is safe to come back into the body. And so you're kind of going through that phase now. I'm a huge fan of somatic healing. I have I have done a lot of somatic healing through my journey early on. I think I started at 18 months in. Well, it was like it was like out of survival. It was like You do this
Mm.
or you won't make, like, it was kind of like that for me at that point. I'm happy to hear that that is a journey you're going on. It's quite special. And there is a lot of like a lot of
It
science,
is.
a big topic to talk about, which we won't get into, but it's fascinating. Um,
Yeah, it really is. And I wish it was something that had been in the education system when I was growing up, and I'm sure the same for all of us. But yeah, another conversation for another time, because it is a massive topic in its own right.
it is, it is. And so, okay, so let me ask you, what were the coping tools that you used then over these last 9 years, especially the first 5 years, right? Like, what helped you stay alive?
I think it really came down to imagination, which
Mm,
is kind of, looking back, I think, wow, that's I'm actually quite amazed that the brain was able to do that,
yeah.
given the assault it was going through. Like you say, mind, body, soul, all at the same time. That's exactly what it is.
Mm,
It's that violation of all three things together over weeks, months, years. But somehow through that, I was just able to imagine things being better,
mhm.
and held on to the things I'd experienced prior to that, living abroad, playing in bands, living my dreams. And um, yeah, I just really lent into that. And so that's where I turned to a lot of creativity, doing artwork, doing music, listening to music, and just really starting to think about how could I navigate where I'm at to where I want to be, and not letting the present circumstances dictate my sense of reality as a fixed thing, but to see that as part of this journey, and see the potential road ahead, and knowing that despite what I was going through, even though I didn't know it for 2 years, um, that actually I still have the ability to make decisions as to what I do next with that. So yeah, I think imagination, I think maintaining relationships that were healthy. So I've had a few people stick by me through thick and thin, friends of mine. That was really important for me. Um, Learning online and connecting with the community at large. Um, and I think just always, as fucking tough as it was, trying so hard to live from a place of gratitude, that you can be suffering in an inexplicable, indescribable way, but grateful that you made it another day, and grateful that maybe this week was a little bit better than 5 weeks ago. And just bit by bit, holding on to those things as a way to kind of pull yourself to the next step, to the next level. And then I think the granular things, like, I say granular, they're very significant. Healthy eating, trying to push myself to do some movement and reconnect with the body again through that. And that was a process of years. But bit by bit, those things stack up, those habits, those decisions. And it was never perfect. I never had the perfect diet, or it was never linear, as we know, but it was progress, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great advice that you just shared. So I'm happy you said all of that. So, and you could plead the fifth on this question. Obviously the mind knows that it's not our fault that this happened to us, right? Like, our minds, we now know that we did not receive informed consent. The medical system denies what has happened to us, despite it being well documented in global literature. Um, and so there's like this logical piece, but there is also then the piece within the heart, which we now know is also can be very separate from the mind. What the heart carries versus what the mind carries can be very two different things. And so my question to you is, have you forgiven yourself?
Never been asked that before, nor have I ever asked myself that before. That's a very interesting question. Have I forgiven myself? I think the answer that's coming up is I'm 90% there.
Mm.
Um, And I'm wondering why that feels like the right answer and how I can quantify why 90 and what the 10% is. Because as you say, it's you've got the surface level, or rather the conscious understanding of this is what happened to me. This was not my fault. This is happening to so many people. And you get the full picture of what's gone on. But on the other side of it, you have the subconscious memory, trauma memory of being gaslit for so many years, not just by doctors, but by everybody, most people. And yeah, sadly, even people within the benzo community have said certain things. Well, you did cold turkey. Well, you did do this. Well, did you read the leaflet? Did you not read the side effect leaflet? And I don't think people realize how cruel and damaging those comments are. Because you've got no context of what it was like to be in that person's situation, that person's body, that person's mind at that point in time, to just make a judgment like that. So there have been things that I guess have stuck with me and made me feel a certain anger with myself. How could I let myself get into this position? How could I have not researched it more? How could I ... But I look back and I just think I really did the best I could have done at every stage of this. To the point where even when I wanted to research or I wanted to question medications, from the age of 12 when I was put on Roaccutane for skin problems, and I questioned it because apparently they can cause suicide in people. My parents and doctors were telling me not to be so, I can't remember what the word was, but don't overthink it. Don't be so, they're the professionals, trust the professionals. So I'd already been ground down a lot over the years to not listen to my intuition and to not cause a fuss, or whatever the phrasing was. So I think I'm pretty much there. I think it's just that continual somatic healing work of the remnants and the ghosts of trauma that can linger for a while. But yeah, I'm getting there.
Well, good for you. And it is a journey, and everyone's timeline to that is different. And it's I think it's a difficult thing to look at. And then it also brings you back to that somatic piece, because I think when there's consciousness of if you have forgiven yourself or you haven't, then that's something you can sit in your somatic type of healing. Like you can sit in that and sit in that I don't forgive myself type of thing. And so that's why I think it's an important thing to talk about, because we carry that. We carry that. We carry the shame. We carry the guilt. We carry all of these things, which are useless things for us to carry, because it is in fact not our fault. Do I think there is accountability for trusting doctors? That's like, for me, that's where like I take accountability, is like, even though the system has trained us to trust the system, I take accountability for going to them, and I take accountability letting them gaslit me, though my intuition told me this is wrong from the beginning. And the only reason why I say it's so important to take accountability and why I do that is because that's how I actually make change in the future. How I will,
Right.
once I take accountability, damn right, that will never fucking happen again. Like,
Yeah.
that is why I think this is an important topic. And it's the people that has said that to you about like, oh, you went cold turkey, you should have read that is a reflection of them and their own trauma and how they are hard on themselves, which is again a byproduct of their own trauma that has nothing to do with you or anyone else. Like, if you had known this was going to happen, I assure you, you would have never done it. Like, this is simple mathematics. You don't need to be a rocket scientist
Right.
to know that. And so I share that because so many people listening have heard the exact, even me, I've heard the amount of people, especially when you're publicly speaking out, the amount of hate and the amount of people that are like, oh, you're a druggie. Like you're like like first off, no one on like we don't crave benzos. Like, should we go through addiction 101 and dependence 101?
I know,
Like we
honestly.
don't crave it. Nobody is like, we're not crave. We take it as prescribed, like an SSRI, SNRI. Like then if
Yeah.
you're referring to us as addicts, you could go refer to them as addicts based off of your definition. But
Mm.
I see this so often in the community, and it's we like we're we have evolved through this journey, and I want us all to know that it is not our fault what happened, and it is not our fault. Like, we trusted the experts, and
Yeah.
at the same time there are pieces where we could take accountability to ensure this never happens again to us, because we are fundamentally engineered. We are engineered animals after going through this. Like, we never see the world the way we saw the world. And and I think in a great way. I think that we take reverence, we take our authority back often going through this, which I see that you have done for yourself through this journey in many ways, you know?
100%. Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you've said. And the whole addiction thing is, I mean, that just was another what the fuck moment. I remember one paramedic crew saying, "Well, have you thought about rehab?" This was like 3 years after I was off it or something. Like, rehab? Are you kidding me? And the way that I try and describe it now is, for me, this is no different. In fact, I think I'm going to do a social media post about it soon. This has felt no different than getting caught up in a bomb attack that had some sort of nerve gas
That's right.
integrated within it
That's right.
and left you with that injury. So imagine going through that, and then people from any
That's right. I
part
like
of
it.
life, online, whatever, well, have you thought about rehab and, addiction? And you're just like, that's, I mean, I have no response to that, because it's so far removed from the reality of this experience. And for some people, maybe that was their experience in other contexts, but you cannot just conflate the two. And it just really speaks to the lack of understanding as to what's actually going on with this issue. I do not know about addiction. I think it's a terrible thing, which I believe that the gateway to that is trauma as well.
That's right.
But it's not the same
That's right.
situation. For me, I feel like it was being caught up in a nerve gas assault. It just happened to be in pill form.
I love that analogy, and you should do a post on that because it's very relatable and it is exactly what happened to us. Um, People don't understand physical dependence, they don't understand neurotoxicity. It's like it's unbelievable, and there is a huge
Yeah.
fund. Yes, they can cross. The two can cross. Like with opioids, often it crosses, but they can live independently, and
Yeah.
it's a big topic. But I know we're coming up to time here, so why don't you share with us and the followers where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm at, what am I at? I think I'm on some places. I'm at Emma Hames. I think on Instagram is MEM Jade Hames. And then the film website, which is the documentary I'm making about this issue, is TOXSICK, TOXSICK. So the website for that is toxic.org. And we are on all the social media platforms, I believe, at Toxic Film.
Awesome. And I'm probably going to get that list from you so I could put that in the description so everyone could find it there easily, okay? But Emma, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and advocating and speaking out. Like, just so many people hearing your story are going to find healing, knowing it's not just them, that they're not crazy. And it helps them get to the next day to see, where you are today. I know that it sounds like you're still going through the journey, but also sounds like you've come really far.
Yeah, and I do really want to leave on that note that, firstly, to everyone out there that's struggling with this, we see you, we know how fucking awful it is. There are no words to fully describe the reality of this, and every day can feel horrific, but please know that it is worth it. Please know that just doing whatever you can. I think, like you said earlier, Melissa, just like getting through that day, getting through that hour, whatever it takes. Take just one foot in front of the other. Just keep going and know that there will be that light at the end of the tunnel. It will be worth it. and you will get to build the life that you want to have. And just lean into that hope and imagination as much as you can.
Definitely. And thank you for that beautiful message for sure, Emma. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me on.
Listen to things that you call upon, setting sun. What has been and what will become. Wanna see this to the end, even if it means I fall through the cracks again. 'Cause I've been losing sleep, and I've never felt so weak. 'Cause I've been holding on to a ghost that's long gone, that's long gone, that's long gone, that's long gone. And I've been leaving memories behind me as I drive to the sunset, thinking what a cliche. And I've been thinking about the future as I've been looking at pictures of us. And I've been alone.